and welcome to Let's Talk Assassin's Creed, your number one podcast for all things Assassin's Creed.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 139 of Let's Talk Assassin's Creed. In this episode, we're going to be talking about Odyssey. In fact, it's a coincidence that we're talking about Odyssey again, and we actually had a good conversation in the last episode with Andrew from Visions of the Past, where we did sort of a lore run through, and he gave us his opinions, and we shared all of our opinions on how did Odyssey handle the lore, what did it expand, and so on. But this time we're back again, just 2 weeks later, with more Odyssey content. And we're joined by another special guest, another returning guest, Ru. Welcome back to the show.
Hello, and good morning. Gonna change the tone. Everyone said good evening, good morning, hello.
Hello and welcome and good morning. Yes, good morning.
Thank you for having me back again. I'm very excited to talk lots about Odyssey.
Oh, me too. Just for people that are listening. So Ru was last with us back in early March, episode 122, when we talked about all things Codex-tober. I guess, what would you call that? Like a virtual community event, I suppose.
Yeah,
that you
virtual
ran.
Community event.
Yeah,
art
it
event.
was great.
Fun times.
Yeah. It was. It really was. And that was a great episode as well. I'm just really glad that you're back and that time zones have worked out because, as you might guess, Declan and I are in the UK and Ru is on the other side of the world, literally.
In frosty Australia.
Sure. We spoke about this before Declan hit record. Surely it doesn't get cold in Australia.
It does. It's quite cold now. I don't have the exact temperature on me, but given that it's the morning, we're probably looking at around 5 degrees Celsius.
As cold as... All right, okay. Well, we're sending you blankets, tea, coffee, warm thoughts. Right, okay.
Warm thoughts. Yep, I'll take them all.
Yeah. So, Odyssey, where do we start? I mean, I'll speak for myself. It's one of my most favourite games in the whole franchise. What about you, Ru?
Not only is it my favourite game, probably in the franchise, it's probably my favourite game, just point blank. I love it so much.
Perfect. And that's it. Thanks for listening. And
Yep.
We'll see you next time.
What
about... Actually, we don't even have a fancy outro. We should probably get on that. Declan, what's your opinion of Odyssey? Give us like your one sentence summary.
Epic.
Yeah,
but I have so much more to say. It's hard to say with just one sentence. And there is something that I want to talk about in this podcast that I've never actually shared with anybody.
Ooh.
You heard it here, guys. An exclusive.
This is tense. I've got goosebumps. Go on, Declan.
So everybody knows like Assassin's Creed because 15 years, but Odyssey is the only game in the franchise where a item from a store was leaked that 2 months before the reveal that actually caused me to save up for the game just because I knew it was going to be in Greece. And by that, a keychain with a Spartan helmet was leaked about 2 months before E3. And as soon as I saw that leak, I started saving up for Odyssey right there and then. And that's the first time I've ever done that with any Assassin's Creed game, just because it was going to Greece. And I knew they had to do Greek mythology, so I had to play it.
Yes.
But I've never done that with any other Assassin's Creed. I've never looked at a trailer or a key out and gone, right, I'm going to save up. I've just impulse bought it on release. But Odyssey, just seeing that helmet, and I was like, I need this game. I need to play it. I just need to own it.
So I tell you what, this is a good starting story. So you started saving up for it. Did you buy it? Did you pre-order it? Did you have it on release day? Did you start playing a few days or weeks later?
I managed to get on a system where I got my copy a couple of days after release because of shipping and all that. And I didn't get gold. I just got single edition, so I didn't get that ridiculously stupid 3 days early access. So I got it a couple of days after and just play the hell out of it because I don't care what anyone says. It's fun. It's hilarious to play as well.
That's a word I would say is definitely is fun. But I tell you, what about you, Ru? Did you get it on release day? Were you there at sort of 6 a.m. getting the disc in the console and playing?
Okay, so I didn't have a console until 2018. So
Okay.
before that, I was Nintendo kid. We had the Wii U. But I'd played most of the Assassin's Creed games at like friends' houses. Black Flag in particular finished that game, and then the guy that I played that game with, he left, and I've never seen him since. So that like Parting Glass song, every time I hear it, I'm like, oh damn, it's my best friend. But I had seen the reveal at E3, and the
Mhm.
first thought in my head was, oh my god, who is this woman? Can I play as her? She is the most badass video game character I have seen in a long time. And I was like, oh, really sucks that I won't be able to play it, but like, I'm gonna love this so much. I think I drew like fan art of it, like of Cassandra, because I was like, whoa, she's like so cool. And then in the Boxing Day sales, I got a console. My dad got my sister and I a console, and he got me Odyssey, and my sister, I think, like Breath of the Wild on the Xbox. But basically, from Boxing Day until New Year's, I just played Odyssey.
That sounds like my perfect Christmas week, to be honest with you.
Because it was like a scorching hot summer, so I just like sat under the fan and just played this game, and I was like, this is the most incredible video game, because it was like the best graphics I'd seen, like played. I think the second best game I'd played before that was Dragon Age Inquisition on like the PC. So having this game that was like, the people looked real, the lighting effects looked real, and
Yeah.
also, by the way, you're in ancient Greece, which is a history you have been obsessed with since you were a kid.
Oh, so it was the character that you saw, but it was also that history. I get to
Yeah.
explore a place and a time period that I've been interested in. It was the same hook for me, funnily enough. I started playing. So you were Boxing Day. I got to count the maths out. I started playing 3 months later after you, and it was kind of just random chance because I hadn't been gaming for years. I'm talking that had been 2019, so I probably hadn't done any gaming for 10 years, apart from like on the like Angry Birds on my phone or like a racing game on the iPad was about the most gaming I'd done. And I'd recently decided I'm going to get back into gaming, so I'd built a PC, and I basically at that time I was just replaying all the old games that I had like in my Steam library and discs and whatever. And just having fun, just getting back to the games I hadn't touched in like a decade. And a friend of mine just sent me a screenshot, and I didn't really understand what I was looking at, but it was this character with this sort of plumed helmet sneaking through the grass in this what was clearly an ancient Greek setting. And he just said to me, "You like history? This is on sale at the moment. Give it a try." And I thought, yeah, all right, I need to play some new games. Let's give it a try, and the rest is history. And
Yeah.
like you two, I just fell in love with it. It was fun. I'd never played an open world game before. I'd never played a game where you actually controlled a character because I'd always played like Sims and real time strategy games and stuff like that. So to have this story and this character, and I'd never played a game with voice acting or mocap or anything, so it was a total mind blowing experience. To have this world in front of you and just to run around and talk to people and I can go and help that person there or pick up a quest over here, and it was just fantastic. It really was.
Mm.
I
Yeah,
think,
so... Oh, sorry, you go.
sorry, I was just gonna say, I think the thing that kind of made Odyssey stand out as one of the greatest games to play is, from my experience of playing Assassin's Creed since 2007, by Syndicate the series was just boring. It's the same Assassin's first.
Oh,
I know, but
Is this syndicate slander?
it's
it's a good
Not
thing
on my
Louise
watch.
isn't here because man, you'd be dead.
it's not like I love Syndicate and I love playing it. It's just it's Assassins versus Templars. It's Assassins versus Templars. Assassins win. Assassins win. There was no unpredictability to the series. You knew whatever outcome Assassins were always going to win. Then Origins was a bit like the first game that got really hyped a big game because it was like soft reboot. It was a different take. But then when you play Odyssey, there's no predictability to the story. Like, I didn't know where the story was going because it wasn't Assassins vs Templars. In your face, it was still there because this is the Order of Ancients were pseudo Templar orders. You didn't expect assassins to automatically always win, and that was perfect. Taking down a pseudo Templar cult to learn more about the Isu gives the series less predictability and more entertainment for me.
I mean, I didn't know any. I'm not going into it knowing nothing. Had you played any Assassin's Creed before this one, Ru?
Yeah, I'd played the Ezio games.
Okay.
I'd played Black Flag at like a friend's house, and then Syndicate.
Yes.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
when Syndicate came out, I also played that at a mate's house because I was like, oh my gosh, it's industrial London. That's cool. So I played it there, but then it was only after I got a console that I was able to like start playing all of the games at like my own pace and be like, yes, I don't have to rush because someone else wants the controller to go and climb Big Ben. I get to climb Big Ben when I want.
So for you, the you were kind of in love with it from the first moment, I guess.
Yeah. I remember there was like a whole running joke that my sister and I had. One Christmas, we had both gotten, they were like these like linen shirts. They were like meant to be beach shirts, and they had like hoods on them. And of course, like on the internet, everyone was like, whoa, Assassin's Creed memes. So we were like, look, we're like assassins. And my parents were like, what? And my sister would be like, yeah, I'm Connor. And then she's like, and you're that first dude, Altair.
First dude.
And we're just like on the beach with these like giant shirts that are just meant to be protecting small Australian children from the violence of the Australian sun, and we're like, hee, we're assassins.
I mean, I feel like an assassin every time I wear a hoodie and put the hood up. Of course, you just do, don't you?
Yeah, that's how it is.
becomes part of your just the way you automatically think about everything.
If Desmond can save the world in a hoodie, then I can go out to the shops in a hoodie and not be judged for it.
Absolutely.
This is bringing back very embarrassing memories of playing Assassin's Creed 1 at 12 years old, and I don't care what anyone says, I used to put rulers up my sleeves with elastic bands and my dressing gown, and I would run around my bedroom and I used to like flick my wrist with little rulers, like, wah! And then I'm going to get so much slack for this, but we lived in an attic in my care house, and my brother came up and I literally jumped off my bed, flicked my ruler, jumped on him, and he started crying, and then I ran off down the stairs.
I mean, I'm glad you didn't assassinate him, obviously. But that is great.
I think it's so bullied for that, but yes, 12-year-old Declan.
Honestly, I'm waiting for the fan art of you in a dressing gown with a hood, of course, and then just those wooden, like 30-centimeter rulers that we all had at school. 2 of those. That's what I'm waiting for now.
Oh, damn, you were allowed wooden rulers? Living lush. We only got plastic ones.
Are the wooden ones better? Worse? I don't know, actually. What's the hierarchy here of ruler materials?
Okay. Ruler hierarchy. The wooden ones have a better stability to them, and if you're doing art, they're so much better. But unfortunately, when you go to public school in Australia, a wooden ruler becomes a deadly weapon. So
Indeed.
People would just run around the classroom holding wooden rulers, and we had like the big meter sticks, and they would just be whacking one another. So I think probably like year 5, they were like, nah, plastic rulers only. You don't get metal rulers. You don't get wooden ones. You just get plastic ones.
Shame. I suppose the fancy kids have metal ones, although they're probably not allowed either. Yeah.
No. I'm about to make like a tier list of rulers.
I think this is required. Oh, and then you've got slide rules and all the rest of it just to get really complex, but
Yeah. Honestly, S tier, protractors.
Oh,
good stuff.
Stop it.
I love a protractor.
Protractors got banned in my school because of Assassin's Creed as well. I kid you not. People were actually throwing knives. It was lethal. They would hide behind desks and they would just like throw them from the because we all used to have like Adidas bags that would have like cup holders in the sleeves, and the straps that go across your chest. And people would like keep little protractors in the chest sleeve, and they would just like throw them all like from. Literally, bear in mind, I was in like a very specific group of kids that just got to little lark around in class quite a lot, and we used to all play Assassin's Creed. And we used to all like teach the learning teachers would just leave us to our own devices, and we'd have like rules fights, little rubber assassin blades, throwing protractors out of bags like an assassin.
You was gonna say,
Wait.
I had a traumatic moment. I had a broken protractor thrown at the side of my head. Like, I think like 5th day of high school. I'm sitting by my locker, I'm getting my books out, and this kid who had decided just straight off the bat didn't like me found a broken protractor and threw it at my head. And at that point I was like, are you telling me I've got like 6 more years of this?
Oh, I feel bad for you, Ru. That's terrible.
Don't. It was actually moderately funny in a way of I had to go to the nurse's office, obviously, and they were like, "Oh, what's the day?" And I'm like, it's a Wednesday," and they're just like, "No, what's the date?" And I'm like, "Oh, I couldn't tell you." That's not because I got hit in the head. I just have no concept of time. They were like, "Who's the Prime Minister of Australia?" I'm like, next question. Couldn't tell you. Ask me what the colour of the sky is. I can answer that one. Yeah, protractors, S tier as weapons and tools for maths. And props to reenact Assassin's Creed with. Very good.
Absolutely. Dressing gowns are optional in this reenactment scenario.
It's like when, you'd play Star Wars and you'd put on your dad's dressing gown and you'd carry around a stick in the garden.
Of course.
Anyone
Making
else
the noises.
Do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh.
Except for me, it was probably the original trilogy, and for you, it was probably the prequels, I'm guessing.
Oh, I was a prequels child.
Gotcha.
I'd seen the originals. Like, my parents were like, "Yep, we're gonna watch all of them." So it was like every single Saturday night, we'd have a movie night. We'd put on a Star Wars movie, and I was like, I feel really bad, but like, the prequels are kind of like better because they're just more funny. Like, they were funny in a bad way.
You know what? There's something, I don't know.
It's just I love democracy.
It is rather pantomimey when you think about it. I don't know if you have pantomimes in Australia, but yeah. Something not quite right with. Anyway, let's not get into Star Wars. I'm an old fart. I prefer the originals, but what do I know? Lots of people love the prequels and the sequels, and that's great.
Yeah.
Let's chat about Odyssey. So, how did you get on with the story? Because there's really kind of 2 stories that mix together. So there's the family story, what happened to my family, and then there's hunting and exploring the clues for the cultists and dealing with that. So did you kind of follow those 2 stories? Did you explore the dialogue options? How did you role play Cassandra? Was she aggressive? Was she romantic? Was she kind of sarcastic?
I don't mean to use language, but I played her as just an absolute bitch.
Fair enough.
I chose like so many of the aggressive options, especially to like the cult members, because I'm like, you're telling me this woman has basically grown up being told she has no family. The family that she does have, has exiled her, and they're all like, yeah, they're alive, and she's like, die.
Yeah.
But then I also like, I chose every romance option.
So did I. Absolutely.
I was like, as soon as you like meet that old lady,
oh my god,
I was like,
yes.
Yep, I must romance every single character. Truly favorite romanceable character, Alcibiades.
Oh yeah.
He's such a good character. I love him. But yeah, I mostly played her as just like a romantic at heart. Like, she probably reads poetry, but also if you look at her wrong, she would throw a knife at you.
Mm, mm, I can
Like,
get
is
with that.
just bitter and resentful for basically being abandoned for 20 years of her life, only to find out, pranked, your family's okay. Oh, and your brother's alive. You know, that one you kind of threw off a cliff and have been blaming yourself ever since.
When I played it again, I was new to all of this, and I didn't really have. I was generally compassionate, but also I kind of role played her however I was feeling that day, because it took me months to finish it. Probably 3 months, because I remember I was just approaching the end of the main story when the DLC chapters were being released.
Mm.
I probably didn't catch up with the release schedule until Fate of Atlantis. But anyway, and so if I was having a bad day at work, I'd finish work into ancient Greece. Yep, you're dying. You're dying. You're dying. If I was having a good day at work, I was like, sure, we can negotiate, or whatever, not a problem. But I didn't really have a character other than just however I was feeling that day. I rationalised it to myself that, well, you know what, Cassandra, she's on a very long journey. She's gonna have some good days, and she's gonna have some bad days, and that's
Yeah.
fine.
I
that
had
was my kind of thought
yeah.
process.
I had like the same thing, except I was doing like my final year of high school when I was playing the game. So I would get home from school and I'd be like, I need to de-stress. So I'd play Odyssey for about an hour. I'd de-stress. I'd take out my anger on a bunch of cultists.
Absolutely.
And then I'd get in on my homework and I'd get it done. And that was my schedule for basically 12 months.
I love it.
So I played in like hour chunks, and on the weekend I'd be like, "Ooh, gonna treat myself to a long gaming session," which would basically be doing side quests and taking photos.
So many photos. Yeah.
So many photos. Oh my gosh.
I'll tell you what then. So let me ask a very specific question. We haven't really discussed talking about this, but I think we should. When did you think to yourself, I could make Cassandra's costume? Because just
when
for
I
people
saw
listening,
it
if you
E3.
don't follow Ru, you need to follow Ru and see her recent pics, because her costume is amazing.
Yeah, E3. When I saw her armor at E3, I was like, wow, I'm gonna cosplay her. That's kind of like how I cosplay characters. I see characters that I like the design of, and I'm like, yep, I'm gonna cosplay them. That's how it's gonna be. And then I didn't think about the fact that I was starting high school, so I didn't finish that cosplay until 2020.
But it's great. It really is. I mean,
Thank you. I have some ideas in store for a cosplay that is Cassandra that maybe has to do with the crossover. Hint, hint.
Interesting.
Alexandria.
Very nice. I mean, that's such a simple outfit, but I love it.
Yeah.
Well, simple to me. I shouldn't say that, because maybe to make it's a pain in the backside. But to me, just looking at it on the screen, it looks very, very simple.
I have like this idea in my head that I want to add like all of these like tiny little details that would be like specific to her. So like, yeah, she's wearing like the black and all that, and she's got like, the sword, but I feel like, maybe on her tunic she has like a small like prayer, right? Or like on each of like her like clothing, like on her under like clothes, like on her tunic, she's got a coin stitched in on the lining, because she doesn't know when she's gonna die, but when she does, she wants to have her coin for the afterlife.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome to the headcanon zone with Ru.
Oh, that's a very good point, though, because it could happen at any time. I love that detail.
It's truly like when she, spoiler alert, turns into dust. I'm mad at that, because I'm like, I'm sorry, should have gotten a funeral. Fight me on that one. Like, oh, maybe the assassins. I made a joke that someone on the Altair too was probably like, hey, can I like, study it? I think it's Alana. In like one of the lines, she asks like, "Hey, can we get some samples?" And Layla's like, "She's turned into dust."
Does she say that? I don't remember that line. That's
It's like I
kind
think
of.
it's so like it's so weird. But I'm like, were you thinking that the whole time? Like, if there was a body, were you just gonna haul her back onto the boat and just be like, "Yep, it's time for an autopsy"? That's
Oh,
creepy.
yeah. Yeah. I do have one gripe about that scene where she hands over the staff and then she suddenly ages. It's a really minor gripe, but what the hell? So she emerges, she's got her business suit on. She's still got her distinctive hair. That's fine. Side braid, of course. And when she hands over the staff, she ages, but her hair doesn't age. It flicks immediately from brown to white in one frame. And it's just like, look, I appreciate animation. There's a cost to it. Someone's got to color it and render it. I get that. But it should have aged over just a few seconds, not one instant frame. It's just one of those little things. This is a really touching moment. This is a big moment. And then, well, come on, hang on, you guys. That's all. I don't want to say broken my immersion, because that's one of those really stupid phrases people say. But it was like, come on, you could have animated that. Anyway, yeah, there's a little Odyssey gripe.
There's also the part where it's like, she hands over the staff, instantly dies, but then in the book, Pythagoras lives for like 4 or 5 days. Basically just like telling Cassandra everything she needs to know. Layla gets 2 questions.
And
then
again, honest, I don't remember the book that well, so that's a really interesting detail. So after he hands the staff over, they
and
they
then
have a chat.
They they stay like in Atlantis for a few days, and then once he dies, he tells Cassandra to burn his body so no one like knows about it. And she basically stands like on Thera alone, just basically burning the body of her father, and she can't tell anyone. So in the book, she doesn't tell Herodotus or Barnabas that he was her father. He basically said, like, "Oh yeah, it's stuff." And I'm like, that's so sad. And then with the hair, I truly think she had different hairstyles, right? But so Layla would recognize that it actually was her. She's racking her brain. She's like, okay, what did my hair look like when I was alive in ancient Greece? Let me just rebraid my hair like that so this woman recognizes me.
Again, I love that explanation. But you see, I've been watching Stranger Things, and now I'm imagining that Cassandra, had all the hairstyles of all the different decades. So she would have had the big perm in the 80s.
Oh, she definitely had a mullet.
If someone hasn't drawn that, someone needs to draw that.
My friend keeps on saying, you need to draw Eivor with a mullet. Eivor just gives me mullet energy. And I'm like, She really does have a bit of mullet energy to her.
Yep, I could see that. Not that I'd say that to Eivor, because she'd beat the crap out of me. But, I'm sure whatever she wears, she looks great.
She'd be like, what the hell is
Eivor
a
is not to be trifled with.
Could you... my voice went then. Could you imagine Althea's reactions to Cassandra walking around in 80s England, pink neon vests and green neon socks with shoulder pads? Althea would be like, what the hell did we create when we made humans? What is this monstrosity?
I think she would have gone down like the punk route in like the 80s in London. She'd have like that London grunge look, like Sex Pistols and all that. Fully supportive of just the absolute punk attitudes of that time.
Imagine
the Fry twins would be proud.
Imagine if she just turned punk. She went to a rebellious stage away from Althea. She's like, you know what? I've dealt with it for years. I'm going rebellious. Althea's like, you're not going to that concert. She's like, yeah, I am. Just watch me. I'm gone. Put my
off to get a piece of Eden. Off to get a piece of Eden. She's just got to do her eyeliner first. Just
let me get my earrings and my nose stud, and then I'll get the apple of Eden for you.
I'm Alethea, you wouldn't understand. I would understand. You've had these phases all through history.
See, this is the biggest potential Odyssey gave us. Cassandra is just a walking textbook of awesomeness. There is so many stories, and you made the point before we start recording. They don't have to be serious. There's so much random stuff you could do for a laugh with Cassandra, because it would make sense if you're around for thousands of years. You're not just going to take everything seriously. After a while, you're just going to give up. I think before James joined, I mentioned that I bet you during the Revolutionary Paris, she was stealing paintings because she liked it. She didn't care. The Paris was burning down.
Why not? I mean, she was collecting shiny stuff, wasn't she, for 2,000 years? 2,500 years. So I could see that.
She's like a pigeon, a magpie.
Absolutely, a magpie. Yes.
Just collecting all their shiny things. You know what? I think Cassandra and Sunan would get along well. Both collecting shiny things. Sunan brings Eivor like a nice pebble. Cassandra brings her an apple of Eden. They're besties.
I'm going to keep my head canon that she met Tolkien, talked to Tolkien about her life, and he described Smeagol and Smaug as just Cassandra.
Yep.
Just this one feisty woman in a cave with tons of stolen treasure. That's not a dragon. That's Cassandra. Someone steals your piece of Eden and someone's chasing them. My precious. That's not Smeagol. That's Cassandra. She's just inspiration for all Lord of the Rings mythology, I bet you.
Yeah, truly think, it's the whole thing with immortality. It sucks. It's garbage. It would be miserable. But also, you are going to live long enough to master, pottery. You can live long enough to master oil painting. Cassandra is probably, she probably sits there and knits.
She's got a lot of time to knit, that's for sure.
She's just sitting in Atlantis waiting for Layla. She's like, hit the big puzzle pieces that make that big light puzzle. And she's just sitting up to the corner, just knitting a scarf. She's like, I gotta get this done before I die.
Sorry, you mentioned pottery, and I just got this weird idea that she's just 10, 20, 30 years later, bored of her life, so she makes an identical Greek vase, hides it in the dirt just to F with archaeologists. When this plate is 10 years out of date. Wow, did it get here? Sandra's like, haha, that was me. Wait till you find the one hidden in Pompeii.
Archaeologists. I just know it.
That graffiti in Pompeii, Cassandra.
Yep. As I said before, it's like the Loki situation. She's tagging, she's writing the Isu language in Pompeii. She's writing I am the immortal keeper. I will never die. Here is the periodic table of the Isu, but it all gets destroyed, so it doesn't matter.
Are you saying that Cassandra's doing disaster tourism, going from one volcano to the next earthquake to the next?
I'd honestly say yeah. But I feel like it's not she's going there on purpose. I feel like, she just goes there for a nice vacation and just something bad happens.
What about things keep happening to me? Yeah.
She was probably gonna go to Lisbon, gonna have some nice time there. I know there's a piece of Eden there, but it's not my consent. Why is the ground shaking?
Yeah. Oh, look at that Irish guy go. He can run fast. Yeah.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
He's moving. Oh, no.
Time to get out of here.
She then finds out it's Shay, and she's like, you ruined my vacation. I don't care that you're a Templar, but you ruined my vacation, so therefore perish.
I think there's another thing about Cassandra that literally I only started figuring out because of this whole crossover is I expected her to steal Excalibur from Cassandra because for some rad reason I had this idea that she went swimming in the lake, she found Excalibur, she's like, yeah, I've got the sword. Then some rad British dude steals it off her. And she spent the past millennium looking for it, realising he was the king, and now this Viking woman's trawling around this big ass sword, and she's like, hey, That's mine. I went diving for an hour for that. Give us it back. But no, I didn't get my wish.
No. I used to have the idea, I said this with like a friend, that like, so she met Alfred the Great when he was younger and he went to Rome, and then his father, like being a Templar, was like, ooh, you have knowledge of the Order of the Ancients, come back to England. She says something, she gets killed by him. It's like the old guard situation. She comes back, and then like 20 or so years later, she turns up with this like random ass Viking woman, and Alfred's like, I saw you die. She's like, oh, it must have been, my grandmother. Ooh.
I like how we're like meant to be talking about Odyssey and we're celebrating Odyssey, but we just cannot shave the fact that Odyssey is good. Good world.
Good
Good
stuff.
story. But Cassandra just sells it. Just
She really does.
literally. And especially when you're stupid enough to write a story where this woman from ancient Greek is immortal, you're then giving fans the world in their hands because there is so much. Plus, she's got an Isu with her. Do you imagine how many times she's probably walked past a monument depicting a battle between gods and monsters, and Luffy's like, yeah, that didn't happen. That guy's my cousin. He didn't look like that. He wasn't blue and 6 foot tall. He was a midget. No, that didn't happen. My husband did not look like horns on a helmet.
Talking of horns on a helmet, you've reminded me of something. If I may ask Ru a more serious question. So,
alrighty,
we had Origins, and then a year later we had Odyssey, and we had Layla as our modern day protagonist. And there wasn't really, from the modern day story, there wasn't really any real continuity between the two. The events of Odyssey weren't influenced particularly, other than Layla now had a couple of assassins helping her. And then when we get to Valhalla kind of brings together all the different threads of the story that they've been building. And of course, we learn that Alethea has kind of been cheating everybody and guiding things so that she can be, what's the right word, reborn? Well, bring Basim back anyway.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that kind of payoff? So Cassandra's been carrying this staff for 2,400 years, and then, turns out you were just being used by Isu that had been reading the calculations tens of thousands of years in advance.
I kind of I get the whole, oh yeah, she's an Isu, so therefore why did you trust her in the first place? But then when you listen to all of the recordings in Atlantis, it really doesn't make sense that Alethea would put this much work into all of these recordings, all of these simulations, all of this stuff to convince Cassandra that she was the good guy. And then basically to 2,000 years later be like, yeah, actually, I've got a husband, because I think it's in the end of the Atlantis DLC, Alethea tells Cassandra that their memories are entwined. So Alethea's memories are now Cassandra's memories, and Cassandra's memories are now Alethea's, which, poor Alethea, if I'm honest. But it's to me, the Alethea that we see in Odyssey is they're not the same character. They're two different characters. Something feels like it got lost in communication, and I don't want to say anything, but I feel like between studios, it feels like there was something that got lost in communication. It felt like they were writing two different stories for how they wanted it to go. They made Air of Memories seem like such a big thing, and then it's, oh, you got stabbed by a tree. Congrats.
Yeah. They've definitely had, I think we kind of covered that when we interviewed Darby a few months ago. Ubisoft collectively, or the Assassin's Creed brand, should we say, it would benefit from a small number of people actually plotting, not plotting out every line of dialogue, but just doing the major story points. Who's going where, who's doing what have they achieved, or what might the options be, and making sure that it does have some sort of continuity. I was thinking about, just to go back to our Star Wars point earlier, if you go and watch A New Hope, I am sure now that Kenobi has been released, there might be some ways that you could say, well, look at what happened in Kenobi. It doesn't really tie in with the dialogue or the characterizations or whatever in A New Hope. But do you know what? It was made 40-something years ago. Does it really matter? No. This franchise has been going 50 years. I think we have to allow occasional disagreements, shall we say, between different stories. But yeah, these were released so close together, 2 years apart, we should say. These 3 games as a trilogy for Layla definitely would have benefited from some kind of long-term plan, not with the historical bit, because you can do what you like in the historical sections. You can go wherever you want in the world and in history, but for Layla's story, and as you're right, pointing out about Alethea and the other important characters that are introduced, it would have probably benefited from a bit of planning. Maybe we will get that in future games. I'm hopeful. I am hopeful that we will get that in future games.
I have this whole idea that, like, Cassandra's, like, she's still alive in a sense. She's just in the grey, and she's just hanging out and playing poker with Desmond. Right? And, like, Basim's just gonna, like, maybe in, like, the last chapter we get of Valhalla, he's gonna do something, and Alethea's just gonna be like, you know what? I want my weird little human back. Come on, Cassandra. Get out of retirement.
Anything is possible with Isu-Tech.
Yeah. They just throw a shroud on, like, the dust particles in Atlantis and just hope for the best.
Go on, Declan.
I just want to say on the Lost in Translation stuff with the characters, the real reason why all that happens is if you go back and read Jason Schreier's post for Infinity, there is a lot of amnicity between Quebec and Montreal. I don't know what that means, but it seems like Quebec and Montreal have never agreed on the franchise. So I'm pretty sure that Quebec hides their secrets of how they want to write Assassin's Creed from Montreal. So Montreal's like, hey, let's write Althea like this. Let's ask our boys at Quebec how they did it. And then it's like, no, this is my secrets. You do what you want. So they have to then improvise just by watching the game, which is not really as impactful, but God help us when they join together for Infinity. That's all I'm going to say.
But it's like the whole thing with, like, Alethea. Even if she is an Isu whose thoughts, feelings, and emotions come out to, I don't know, ones and zeros, she was still stuck with Cassandra for 2,000 years. She basically, I think it's in the crossover, there's, like, a note from Basim that says, like, Alethea's memory was well accompanied by Cassandra. It's like, they might, Alethea might be, like, using her, but they're still, like, in a way, friends.
Yeah.
And that kind of, like, makes me think, did maybe Cassandra know about, like, Alethea's plan? Like, maybe one day she's just, like, she woke up and she had, like, this vision in her dream of, like, the Yggdrasil machine and of, like, this man, and she's like, who is that? And Alethea realizes she can't hide this secret from her anymore, and she has to tell her. And Cassandra's like, well, my family's already gone, so I'll help you get back with yours. Because she's still kind of, like, even if she's bitter and pretty and immortal, she still kind of has that, like, heart of gold of being like, I'm still going to do something to help someone because, well, no one helped me.
I like that interpretation. You could certainly imagine it happening, couldn't you? She's lived long enough. Everyone she's ever known has died many times over. You could take that idea and because what we don't know is what will Basim do next now that he's alive in 12. We left him in 2020, didn't we? Because the modern day for Valhalla follows the period of release. So what will he do next? Is he going to be a trickster? Is he going to be working with the good guys, or is he going to be doing his own thing as a rogue agent or something?
I'm just imagining, like, he meets William Miles, and he's like, I met your son in the grey. He hates you.
Oh my god, I'd forgotten that. That's even of course that's possible. Yeah.
Like, he just shows up and just feels like, yeah, your son and I had a great chat. Anyway, here's a knife. If you just don't look at your stomach for a second, we can get this done with quickly. Like, Basim has just, like, been chilling there since 2012, with Desmond, hearing about what William, did. It was like, yeah, when I meet this man, it's over. Justice for Desmond Miles, honestly.
Poor Desmond. I was just going to say, with Basim and Althea, because of the spear, there's actually only one logical story point for the series, which, when you speak of logic, it's never going to happen. Instruments of the first will. Like, that's literally the only logical explanation. How do you resurrect Alethea? Instruments of the first will, because they did it with Juno. But that's too simple. Ubisoft won't do that. It's too logical.
Although, I mean, does that mean we might get the slightest bit of Elijah content? Because I know some people that very much want Elijah Miles content.
Well, technically, yes. Like, this is, like, this actually technically isn't off topic. This is what Odyssey can do to the lore that people may not realize because they just see the short term. This whole staff with Althea could introduce the Instruments of the First Will, could theoretically bring back Elijah content. We know that Desmond Miles is potentially in the grey, just like Juno was, so there is a way to actually use a Shroud of Eden to bring Desmond Miles back, just how they used a Shroud to bring Juno back using a new body. Odyssey sets these building blocks up, and who knows, as you said, Althea and Cassandra shared the memories. Who knows that they've not crossed paths with the Instruments before?
I can just imagine they're just getting into like a bar fight with the Instruments of the First Will.
It's a good point. They could revisit those ideas and bring back characters if they wanted to. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like the whole thing. I don't want... It sounds strange to say because I am a #1 Odyssey stan and #1 Cassandra stan. But it's like, I don't want all of the 2,500 years spelt out to us by the games or by Infinity. Because I think for like any media property to survive, it needs to have some level of fan creation. So with like all of the Star Wars stuff, they're filling in every single gap. It's like, oh, do you want to know what this character was up to at this point in time? Well, now you know. But before that, it was fans would fill in the content. So some people think like, Cassandra spent, 2,000 years just basically romancing herself across the world, which, good for her. And then other fans are like, oh, this would probably, suck. She probably spent a large majority of it, like, just being so depressed that the Piece of Edens, they didn't even matter. They were like, why should I care anymore? And then you've got the fans that are like, wouldn't it be funny? And then write the most hilarious fan fiction about the shenanigans this woman got up to. So I think having like... It's the thing I'm worried about with Infinity, is that it will kind of tie up all the loose ends in the series. But I don't want them to tie up the loose ends, because then we can't have theories anymore. And I find that very sad.
And I know this is kind of off topic, but this is the sort of debate that I'm having over like, should the next AC game be Basim? And I'm like, no, because we don't need to know about his past. You know, his past should be ambiguous because, well, it kind of creates more modern day content in the future. Like, hey, Basim, what was it like turning from Basim to Loki? You know, does that all need to spell out? Well, no, we should have ambiguity. You know, we should have guessing because if they spoil 500 years, 5,000 years of Cassandra, I will be unhappy because I just want my little headcanons just to say, stay my own possibility because it's just more fun that way. Because it's fun.
Yeah, I will say, at least with Valhalla, one of my favourite things in Valhalla, and it's that very tiny little detail on Layla's computer that says that the previous wielder of the staff was Cassandra. So there's no mention of Alexios. It is putting Cassandra as the canon protagonist. And when I saw that, I was like, yep, I feel like that is how it should have been. I think like a lot of the problems that people have with Odyssey of it feeling like the main character doesn't have like a set personality, I feel like that is because they had to write a story that would work interchangeably with a male protagonist and a female protagonist. If we just had Cassandra as a solo protagonist, you could have had lines that would be, you know, poignant to her. I know no one really wants, you know, misogyny in their video games, but even just having like a line where someone in Athens basically says something about like, oh, a woman can't do that, and she's like, I'm a demigod, I can do what I bloody want.
Absolutely. Yeah, you make a really good point.
It's
Definitely
like
the game was diluted by how they... We know that that's not how they wanted to create it. You know, devs are on record as saying that Cassandra was intended to be the protagonist, and that's it.
Yeah.
And yeah, we would have had a better game. And that's not because it's a bad game, not in my opinion. I know there are people out there that don't like it. That's fine. But we probably would have had like you say, more clearer character.
And it's
better
the same
writing. Yeah.
It's the same, not to get off topic onto Valhalla, but it's like the same problem that those two games have. It would have been so amazing if, so it's just Eivor that's marketed, there is no male version of her. So then when you first get to Asgard and you load in as Harvey, it's like, what?
Yes.
Why am I loading in as this guy? And then like, you know, maybe Eivor like looks down at her axe after a fight and she sees Odin staring back at her. And it's like, what? Who is this character? But because they kind of revealed the male character, it's like, oh, so there's the male character because the DNA.
Yeah, people. I mean, even before the game was released, once they'd seen the marketing materials, they'd already guessed, okay, there's a Sage type thing going on here, or whatever. So you're absolutely right. Like, the editorial decisions are harming the storytelling massively.
Yeah.
I mean, I played as Let the Animus Choose, and it's funny because funny might be the wrong word actually, but I spend a fair bit of time on the Assassin's Creed subreddit and of course on the Odyssey subreddit. But you know, I'm happy to chat about any Assassin's Creed game on the main subreddit. And you'll see people will come in. Actually, we get it on the Odyssey subreddit as well. I think I mentioned it when we recorded last time with Andrew. People will they'll get to the end of Odyssey, and they'll say they'll put a post on the subreddit like, you know, what the heck, I've been playing 100 hours as Alexios and I played as the wrong character. And the way I look at it is, look, you haven't played as the wrong character. You've played the game. You don't phrase it like that. Don't frame the argument like that. It's still ultimately the same story. But yeah, there are people who want that. What's the right word? They want that canonical experience, and the game doesn't make it clear. You know, again, that player's experience has been harmed by editorial decisions, and I see the same in it's quite often on the Assassin's Creed. I don't mean to laugh at people. That's not fair. What I mean is that people will play the game. Why is everyone calling Eivor she? Why do the NPCs act like she's a woman? I've chosen to play as a man. That's the problem, and the game doesn't tell you that. The game gives you the option. You took a free option. That's totally understandable, but
Yeah.
it was written to choose that middle option of let the animus decide. And again, you're absolutely right. The storytelling and the big reveal, if you like, it's ruined, isn't it? Because you can
Yeah.
choose.
And I was saying with a friend a little while ago that so much of like the story behind like Eivor's character, like especially with Dag doesn't hate Eivor because she's taking his glory. Because when playing the game, you can see that that's not true. He hates her because she's a woman. That's what it feels like. People can try and wrap it anyway. Oh, she's like stealing his glory. Oh, she's glory hungry. So is Sigurd. So is Ivar. So is like Ubar. So are all of these characters. But he has no problem with them. And I feel like Eivor, she would still kind of see it as no, like obviously I was stealing honor from my brother because she's so concerned with everyone else and not herself.
That's what you said about Dag. I mean, I've only played the story of Valhalla once. I don't remember all the lines of dialogue, but that's a really interesting interpretation of his really aggressive reaction to her. I mean, yeah, I punched the guy a lot when the moment arose.
It's like as soon as they get to England and she's put in charge kind of the clan, it's her and Ranvi that are put in charge, he suddenly gets all, I'm not taking orders from you. But then in Norway, he would like happily take orders from her, even if he kind of like, grumbled about it. He still wouldn't, I don't know, threaten to like, offer because she's a leader. So it's very clear that it was like, nah, he's just an ass.
Yeah. Go on, Declan, mate. You've had your hand up for ages.
That's fine. The only thing I did want to say about Dag before I got to a point that I wanted to make about character choice in Odyssey that annoyed me, and I think it's a valid one in my opinion. With Dag, I've always been waiting for the reveal that Dag was a sage, because the reason in my little
hang on, Dag was a sage.
He's not, no, but I wish he was revealed.
He should have been.
I've always had this headcanon that the reason why he turned in England was, from how I've experienced the game, the Odin part of Eivor didn't start taking form till you get to England, where you start seeing that like whole, when she argues with Valka when she first sees his dream, Valka's like, you can't change fate. She's like, Odin did, I'll do the same. That's her and Odin being one and the same. It's like a duality of both fates. Both fates are going to fight against fate, and one doesn't, and Eivor eventually does. And as I noted in my stream, that she calls King Styrbjorn a coward for alliances, but she does the opposite because she realizes actually no, Odin did things by himself. He was a glory hog. I need friends, and I've always had this thing that Dag sensed Odin in Eivor, and when she got that charge, he was like, "You're just like Odin. You're just like how you were before. You're just gonna take everything and run it into the ground because you don't know when to change. You don't know when to grow up." And I've always had this feeling like he's a dick. He's a glory. He just loves stories that maybe he actually has a bit of sage in him or Isu in him, that he recognizes Odin in her. Or maybe his beliefs are so strong because he does believe in his clan that all the myths that he believes in on the fireside, that he sees Eivor as just being Odin. She's just doing what Odin failed to do, and that's just grow up. That's why he challenges her at the Homding, because like, look, you're not going to learn until someone puts you in place. And it was Fenrir that put Odin in his place eventually, and Dag was just taking that early step. Still a dick, but it's just an interpretation that sometimes I feel like he saw Odin in her, because even somebody correctly arc, but there's an arc at the very Eurovision, I think, where Halfdan talks about like gets polluted by glory, and I even said that that's just a metaphor of what Eivor's been doing. That if she keeps going for glory, she could just be like half done, just not trusting anyone, just like Odin. But I'm a weirdo. I spot too many theories about Valhalla.
God, could you just like imagine like that fight with Dag, and he's like laying on the ground, and in his like last breath, he just says to Eivor, "You're just like him."
Ooh,
Like
God, that would
the
be
absolute,
amazing.
like imagine if that was the reveal of Eivor actually is a sage of Odin, and when he says that like without like any potion or anything, that smacks Eivor back into like a memory of Asgard.
That would have been cool, and that would probably tie in with why he treats him with so much disrespect. Because in Norway, that Odin part of is calm because it's more like she's got this personal sense in Norway of killing Kjortvik because of a family honor. With England, she has no personal memories to attach her to England. That's why Odin's more prominent, because that's when she first sees Odin, is when she kills Kjortvik, because in my opinion that's the mental barrier broke down. She's no longer got a personal barrier blocking her from her Odin. She's free. So Odin's like, hey, I'll mess around with you now. Hey,
Hi, I'm your parasite for today.
Exactly, because
oh dear.
I do agree, because it's like that meant like she's had such a mental block because she's just been so fixated on fixing her family's honor that Odin can't link with that. Odin never fought for his family's honor. He was the one who distrusted his family's honor. And once that was complete, Eivor was free to twist his own way.
Honestly, I think the conclusion is just Odin just doesn't like England. He's probably like, it's damp. It rains a lot. Can we go back to Norway? I'm going to make your life a living hell until we go back to Norway where it's cold.
Yes. But I'm going to cycle back to my Odyssey point, because you two are great Odyssey fans and I would love to get your opinion. One of the wishes I have for Odyssey, if they could remake it from ground up and start again, is half the map, half Cassandra's story, but give us two protagonists. One where it's Cassandra's life as Cassandra, but Alexios, you actually play Deimos' life. So his story is Deimos, his corruption with the Templars, and there is missions where you cross over. So if you just play Cassandra's story and now play Deimos', you will cross over his story in cutscenes, and there'll be an AI to fight, because I know AI can do this. I've seen it in games before. But if you pick Deimos' story, you get the flip side, the other story. You know, you've got the hero, he's the villain. And to me, that would be respectful, because Cassandra could still build a solid one-person persona for her, and the male actor of Alexios could have built a very demeaned version for Deimos, if that makes sense.
It does, and I would love to have played that to finish the main game, and then Layla says, "Hang on a minute, the Animus is picking up another memory stream, and you play a shorter, not another 60, 80, 100 hour Alexios story, but you play a shorter series of almost like vignettes where you see parts of his life, and maybe through doing that, because he's a member of the cult of Cosmos, that's how you expose to us, the player, and to Layla, of course, more of the lore. Who are the cult of Cosmos? Who is the leader? What were they aiming for? What was their relationship with the Order of Ancients? That would have been a nice way of doing that, actually. And giving us more of that kind of juicy Assassin's Creed universe stuff that Cassandra just wouldn't have seen. So, of course, it couldn't be in her genetic memories, but Alexios would have. I would love that. I also think that maybe that would have been a DLC instead of Legacy of the First Blade, which was problematic, I think it's fair to say.
See, it's like I'm so conflicted with that DLC, because it's like, after everything, Cassandra deserves like a bit of peace, but if they were going to do a romance, I feel like it should have been like built up more. Like I've mildly blocked out most of that DLC, but it really seems like they just
understated when you say that. It was awful.
They're just like, up, yep, we're just going to eat some boar stew, drink wine, fade to black. Up, there's a baby. Like, timeline-wise, it doesn't make sense because apparently
No.
this takes place, like, it was something like before she meets her mother. So it's meant to be after you kill the Munger, I think, because Brasidas is mentioned. And it's like, I'm sorry, are you telling me that in the middle of a war, she's like, yep, just gonna settle down and have a kid? Doesn't make sense character-wise when she's
No.
so driven for revenge.
No, it doesn't. It's. Oh, I don't want to be too harsh because we don't know what constraints they were working under. But you're absolutely right. I didn't really know about this timeline problem until a few months ago. And one of the moderators on the Assassin's Creed subreddit, I don't know whether he'd done it or worked as a group of people or read it somewhere, but he was giving quite a detailed breakdown on the dates we get in the game. And there are fixed things, like it starts in 431 in the spring, I think. We've got the Plague of Athens. That's a fixed historical event, which you have to kind of pin your timeline around that. And there are other things like Battle of Amphipolis is a fixed historical event.
Yeah.
And then when you try to unpick it and then fit in, like you say, I'm just going to take 9 months off to be pregnant. Now, yes, of course, she wasn't going to like not move for 9 months. I'm not trying to say pregnant women can't do stuff, but maybe don't go into a camp full of cultists when you're, 8 months pregnant. So
Yeah.
it just doesn't work. Trying to fit her life into like the real history, it's almost impossible. And as you say, it's almost not believable. And that is a little gripe I have, which is I played the DLCs after I'd finished the main stories. I didn't even own them. I just bought the base game, played the base game, finished it, and thought that was great. Oh look, there's more content. I'll get that.
And like, no hate to whoever wrote Natakis' character, and I can't remember the voice actor off the top of my head, but he is such a wet blanket. I'm so sorry. Like,
really
I'm sorry.
is.
We got to romance him, and we didn't get to romance Brasidas. This is robbery. We couldn't
Agreed.
romance Aspasia, yet that wet blanket gets a child. Unacceptable.
I'd love to know what like the character design was for Natakas, because yeah, he's not exactly an inspiring chap, is he?
I feel like the character sheet just said a guy. Like just blueprint dude number 1.
I have heard now I've played the main story as Alexios as well, but I've not played any of the expansion stuff as Alexios. So I just did like a straight playthrough, did a new game plus, so none of the faffing around with leveling, just did the story as Alexios. And honestly, it's great. I think the voice actor Michael Antonakis did a good job. Alexios has got quite a sort of brooding, brutish kind of anger to him. It's absolutely great. But I haven't played the expansion stuff. But apparently, I've been told by others who have done this that Alexios and Nima, I think her name is, do work a lot better in terms of, I guess, chemistry or believability, shall we say, than Cassandra and Natakas. But I'd tell you the bit that annoyed me, and I didn't know about this timeline stuff at the time, but because I played the DLC at the end, because it's not really clear when. I mean, it's an open world game. You play the quests when you like. It really annoyed me that Cassandra was settling down with this guy. Not that she was settling down with him for a while, but she never mentioned her mother or her sort of, she says a line like something like, "I'm still trying to find my family, my killers." Well, actually, no, I've already finished that story. I found them.
Yeah.
So why isn't the dialogue giving you a different option to say, well, actually, mum's at home in Sparta, she's happy, all the rest of it. But no, it is a little bit frustrating.
So I think I had like the one how she says something along the lines of like, "Oh, your uncle Brasidas will teach you how to fish," and I'm like, he's dead. He's no longer with us.
Interesting. So again, that's
he's
another
not going to teach anyone
fits.
to fish.
When
I heard that line, I was just like, "Oh, great! Another reminder of that death."
Do you want to know the really cruel thought I had as soon as you said about Brasidas teaching fishing?
Oh gosh.
You could use him as bait. I know that's really harsh. I'm so sorry. My mind works in strange ways. Let's move on.
I say we use, what's his name? Cleon? We'll use
Oh,
Cleo as
absolutely.
bait. It's what he deserves.
Question: did you kill him slowly or did you kill him quickly?
Oh, I killed him slowly.
Oh God, yes. Oh God, yeah.
I'm like,
Stamping him into the sand as the sea runs over his
yes.
head. Absolutely.
Like, and I don't know if that scene was mocap or not, but it's so well done. Like, I think it's maybe I Like Detectives. Colin's got a gif of that scene,
I've seen that GIF.
and like the way that her face is like animated, it is just pure rage.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then like the way like she just moves, like puts her whole body into it.
The
Other
mocap. I
DLC
mean, I
though?
know a lot of the NPC conversations are not mocapped, but there's enough of the core story scenes are mocapped. When I mean, I know it's expensive, hiring all this gear and filming it and doing all the processing, but it's bloody amazing.
Mm.
The quality of the animations on the faces, and it just brings the characters to life. And it does make me sad that, and I'm being really negative tonight. I'm sorry, but when you jump forward to Valhalla, there are so few mocap scenes that it's a real shame. Because when you see one again, everyone talks about the campfire scene. It's bloody amazing. And I just
Yeah.
wish we had more scenes of that quality.
And even just like facial expressions. The one that I can think of in particular in Odyssey is when Cassandra first sees her mother for the first time.
Yes.
And she goes through every single like emotion with basically just one look.
Yeah.
And then you get to Valhalla, and I'm sorry, Eivor does like the most goofy smile in 90% of the cutscenes. She's got this like half-assed lopsided smile.
She
and
has
I'm
a
like,
lopsided
you know
smile.
what?
I think it's quite adorable, to be honest. But
And I'm like,
yeah.
it's cute. I love it. But also, can we get some movement of your eyebrows? Your eyebrows are either just normal or angry, which, like, fair call. She's
Yeah.
got 3 expressions, and they are angry, smirk, goofy ass smile.
There's definitely you do make a good point, and I can't take any credit for this, but I'll of course give the reference. So what, about 6? No, it must be more like 8 or 9 months ago. There's a YouTuber called JV who has done Assassin's Creed content for many years, as well as other games, and he's been very slowly doing a series of videos. I think over the last year or so, where he's been replaying all of the Assassin's Creed games and sort of basically asking the question, what are they like now? Are they still as good as I thought they were when I was a teenager? Because he's been doing this for a very long time. And he did a short video, maybe about 15 minutes, of going back to Odyssey after playing Valhalla. And he's not a fan of Valhalla. He did a very long video essay on the problems he thinks Valhalla has. But what he said going back to Odyssey was how expressive Cassandra is. And it's the mocap. I feel, and I could be wrong here. I'm sure there are people out there who've kind of measured all the scenes and how many minutes of mocap there are versus AI animation and so on. And maybe it's less, maybe it's more, I don't know. But it feels like Odyssey had either more mocap or they used a different animation system for her face. So she felt more expressive and felt more alive. And it's something that he picked out, that Eivor generally is quite blank. I don't know. I'd love to hear what other people think who are listening to this. Did you notice a difference? Did you feel a difference? I don't know. My memory might be hazy. I've only played Valhalla once, to be honest. It's just too long for me to want to play again. Whereas I've played Odyssey. I played Odyssey multiple times. I know Odyssey is a huge game, but I played it multiple times because I was in love. I finished my first playthrough.
Same.
I did all the DLCs, all the Lost Tales, all the other content, and I was like, this is just too much fun. New Game Plus, here we go. I'm going to do it all again, and I did, and it was great.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it.
I think an expression like in Valhalla that like really sticks out is when Eivor says everything else. Like that expression is probably the most expressive she gets in the game, and I'm so glad that their entire, I guess, mocap budget went into that one scene. Because when she said that, I started crying.
Yeah.
I was like, yes, this is like, her basically, overcoming Odin and overcoming, basically her grudges towards her parents, towards her father, and all of that. Then you jump into the DLC and there's no mention of that.
Yeah, Valhalla
Like,
DLCs, they kind of suffer from the same problem as we were describing with Legacy of the First Blade. They don't refer to the progress you've made as a player, so therefore they don't advance the story, so they feel disconnected. So what have I spent the last 100 hours doing? It's a funny one.
And it's like, even like, we didn't really like get any hint of, I guess, how Cassandra, I wouldn't really say like believes, like sees the world, because in Odyssey, I think it's like the Olympic quest, she kind of like has like a bit of like a disregard for the gods. She's like, well, they dealt me like bad cards, so why should I give them any of my respect? They've treated me badly. I'm not going to thank them just because I've got a magical spear. And then with Eivor, she basically sees her whole worldview get ripped away from her. And then there's no mention of the fact that how she views the world has been like fundamentally changed. I was waiting for a moment that you like go back to like Asgard, and like all of the, I guess, the Norse flavor has just been stripped away, and it's just the Isu structures. Because even when we get like I've just blanked on it, the Fate of Atlantis. When you get that DLC, Atlantis, the underworld, and Elysium, they're a mix between that Isu architecture and then that Greek architecture, that although Alethea says it's kind of like to make it more familiar so Cassandra can understand it, it's also still giving the idea of, even if she's seen all of this stuff, she's still kind of believing like, yeah, there probably is, the gods, right? They're probably hanging out in Atlantis. Hopefully they got out before I sunk it.
Yeah.
I'll just never get over the fact that they were basically like, yeah, so Cassandra sunk Atlantis. Do with that what you will. That was like that whole art piece that I did. That's what that was inspired by. The fact that Poseidon says, like, the staff will protect you. And I'm like, does that mean that Cassandra died in Atlantis? Because first time playing it, I didn't realize it was a simulation.
Same. That little subtlety was lost on me.
When Alethea says, oh, it's a portal, I was like, oh yeah, we're going back in time to the Isu era, and Cassandra is just hanging out in all of these mythical realms like an actual person, not basically using a big animus while laying in a puddle in Atlantis.
She does spend a long time laying in that puddle, doesn't she? It's kind of strange.
Her fingers are probably like wrinkled but as anything.
Oh dear.
That hair, it's probably moldy. She was just laying there.
Yeah. It's funny because I wonder again for long-term players whether all of that second DLC, was it clear straight away it's a simulation within a simulation, or it's a trick of the Piece of Eden? Because again, I've just today finished replaying Origins and replaying Origins expansions, and in Curse of the Pharaohs, it's kind of clear that the Piece of Eden is causing tricks of the mind or hallucinations, whatever you want to call it. So I think existing players probably were fairly familiar with that concept of it's a simulation, or it's a hallucination, or it's a, like you say, an animus within an animus, whatever you want to call it. And therefore maybe they were just perfectly settled and off they were. But I was like you, when we first launched into this new expansion, I was like, okay, we're back with these ones that came before that Herodotus had spoken about, and okay, fine, this is fine. But it took time for me to realize, okay, Alethea is building this simulation somehow. Don't ask too many questions. It's fine.
And I also feel like, not to like, I love Valhalla. I think it's a great game, but there's so many things that I feel like it could have done better. And one of those things is I absolutely love the design of the gods in Odyssey. Like, it's that perfect combination of Isu and of like Greek myth. So you've got, Hades with his big helmet and he's kind
Yes,
of like
yes.
dark armor, but he's still got like the Isu lines,
Yeah. He's a couple of feet
Persephone,
taller as well. They're all quite
yeah,
tall. Yeah.
Persephone, she's still got that like regal look to her, but the purple eyes and then the lines on her skin are like a little unsettling. And they just got it so bang on with Odyssey's gods. And then Loki's haircut.
Oh, he's like shaved heart. Actually, I can't even picture it. Is it like a comb over or something?
It's like a shaved comb over. He's
Yeah,
basically got what
yeah.
looks like a flap of hair that he's just flipped over. And I saw an artist on Tumblr. They were like, I had to redraw Loki with a better haircut. I'm sorry.
Poor Loki.
I
Terrible
also
haircut.
do wish that the gods in Valhalla were taller. That would have been so good.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm short. I find it cool when people are tall. I cosplay Cassandra and I'm just like this tiny little Spartan warrior wandering around. And then she's out here like, we don't have a confirmed height for Cassandra, but she's like honestly about 6'5". That's what I think.
She's taught. She is. This came up in with the crossover, did it not? Because there's quite well, I don't know if it's famous, but I certainly have seen it many times. There's an artwork, and I can't remember the lady that drew it, of Eivor and Cassandra. I guess you could say hugging up against a wall, should we say?
Ah, that
And
was
Ave, do you know who it is? Do you know the up piece of art
it's
I'm
Vicky.
thinking of? Right, Vicky.
It's
Thank you.
Vic.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
I have let me real quick because I wanna shout her out because I love her art.
You look it up. I'll continue describing it. So she drew it. I don't know how many years ago. Perhaps when Eivor was first sort of revealed as a character, she drew it as Eivor kind of picking Cassandra up under the arms and they're kissing. And it was, I think, when the crossover came out, either through the Kia or maybe the developers spoke about it. I can't remember, but there is basically a reference that says very clearly that Eivor is probably of average or slightly above average height for a woman, and Cassandra is a fair bit above average height. So she's the taller person. I think Vicky redrew it, didn't she?
Yeah,
The
so
other way around or something like that. But
it's
you go and fill in the details for us, Ru.
yep. So her art account is Vicky Hine. So VICKIEHIME, supporting the fellow artists. But
Happy
I
days.
remember my friend was also playing it, and she got a photo mode shot, and you can see Eivor probably comes up to like Cassandra's shoulders. It looks like when she's
Aw.
standing next to it, she's so tiny. And that just makes me think, like, if Cassandra had met all these other assassins, like, what would the height difference be? Because, like, Henry in Syndicate, he says, like, oh yeah, the twins are equal in height, and the twins are something like 5'9", and then if they met Cassandra, she'd just be like, hi. I can just imagine, Altair meeting her and being like, we're not meant to stand out. We're meant to hide in the crowd, and you're just there constantly. Sort it out.
And now I'm wondering, because the tallest assassin I would have guessed, or let's say playable protagonist, would probably be Connor. He's 6 foot plus, so, sort of approaching 2 meters, I think.
Yeah.
But now I'm wondering how tall Cassandra. Okay, this is a topic of research after we finish recording.
I say she's quite tall because I think there's only like 2 characters that are taller than her in the game. No, wait, 3. And that's the Munga, Xenia, and Testicles.
Ah, yes. Yeah. Okay.
And I truly believe she could beat them all in a fight.
Absolutely.
It's like, yeah, I think she's like pretty tall because not only like if she's just tall normally, but then like a little sprinkling of Isu, she's got to be taller as well. That's why even when she gets to, the underworld, she's tall. But even in comparison to the gods, it's like she's short, but she's not that short. I mean, she's short enough that Hades gives her like a little rub on the head. I always found that so funny. She just looks so offended. It's like the whole testicles thing over again.
Yeah.
She's like, how dare you touch the hair?
This comes back to that point though of again, don't know if it's mocapped or whether the sort of the animators just spent more time on it or whether they had better tooling. But again, those scenes with testicles, scenes with Alcibiades, there are so many scenes where she just really leaps off the screen. And it's kind of a shame that I don't know if we hit that same level in the newer game.
Just like, it's like these little like eye movements that she does. I can think of like the testicles scene. Alcibiades, he says like, well, I guess you'll have to be the champion now. And he like, touches her on the arm with a little bit of flirtation, and she just kind of like looks at him and just be like, yeah, I know what's happening later. And it's like, okay.
Yes. I think there are multiple romance option moments, aren't there, with Alcibiades? Yeah. And a number of amusing side
every
quests.
single one of them.
Absolutely, so did I. Hey, it's a long Odyssey. Everyone deserves a bit of a relaxation time,
Yep. I just like, because it's like, oh yeah. I keep on joking. The problem with playing historical games and someone that likes history is I know the ending. So it's like, I knew that, oh yeah, Brasidas is going to die. Alfred's going to establish the Danelaw. Cleopatra's going to die. All of this different stuff. But then with Alcibiades, it's just like, yeah, I know the history, but this man was such a wild card in the history, he could easily be a wild card in the game. They can do whatever they want.
Absolutely. I mean, in real history, if I remember rightly, he was an Athenian who, for a time, worked for the Spartans and ended up in the Persian or the Achaemenid Empire. So he kind of played all three sides in the war,
My favourite thing with the Spartans is a fun little history fact. Will forever be my favourite history story. Is he basically defected from Athens, went to work for Sparta, and then after like a year being there, the king's like, hey Alcibiades, why does my son look like you? And he's like, oh. I think I should go back to Athens now. And he just flees Sparta.
My word.
And I'm like, I wish we had got, we get a little bit of his hijinks, but I do wish we got more of his hijinks. Of him just being like, Cassie, can you help me? Yeah. Please.
I need help escaping.
She's like, whose wife did you sleep with now? That's how she ends up meeting Darius and all that, is because she's got the Persian Empire on her ass because of something Alcibiades
did. Yep, that makes perfect sense.
And Darius just rocks up being like, why are they all after you? And she's like, long story short, my friend's an idiot. And he's
Can
like,
you please help me?
He's like, my son's an idiot as well. They'd get on well.
Oh, yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah, Odyssey's so good. Truly one of my favourite games. There's so many, little details. Especially, I like all the details that they're not, important, but they still give you hints to, the type of character that Cassandra is. So there's one point that I know is very important to many players, and that's when you defeat the Medusa and Cassandra quotes Sappho. And to a lot of players that was hey, that's a recognition of, all this time ago there was someone like me. And that's, what that quote is about, someone I tell you in another time will remember us. And it's yeah, and someone did. And then that also brings in the fact of, does Cassandra read poetry? she lived on a tiny little island. How did she get access to poetry? Was she just, saving up her coin from all these odd jobs to buy like a scroll or two? Did she buy scrolls so she could teach Phoebe to read? All of these like tiny little
Oh,
details.
stop.
Then
That's just too
then just give
adorable.
you then just give you like a massive thread
Yeah.
of all of this stuff. I truly believe that Cassandra taught Phoebe how to read and write because she wanted Phoebe to have a better life than she did. So there's your angsty headcanon for today.
Oh, damn. One thing I did miss from the game, and it's in the novel, and it sticks out very clearly because it would have been a real nice kind of mid-game light moment, shall we say, and it would have added to the relationship of Cassandra and Phoebe. It's in the book. I think it's the first time Cassandra goes to Athens, so it would be either just before or just after the symposium. And Phoebe is there because she follows, doesn't she? She leaves Kephallonia and follows on. And if I remember rightly, they play a game of hide and seek in Pericles' garden, which straight away just sounds crazy because it's Pericles, the leader of Athens. But anyway, I think a little scene like that, using your eagle vision, being sneaky, you could have even have done it almost like a stealth level.
Yeah.
Would have been kind of just a bit different from a gameplay point of view, but we could have had some dialogue, we could have had a cutscene or two that would have really built that relationship, because in the book it definitely has more, I think there's more depth to it. And I would have liked that in the game.
If I remember correctly, I think that scene is when Cassandra gets to Athens during the plague.
Ah, okay.
So she's walked through like the plague-ridden streets of Athens, and she gets to Pericles' estate. And basically, I think like one of her first thoughts is, "Where's Phoebe?
Yeah.
Is Phoebe okay?" And then in kind of like the gardens where I guess they're safe from the plague, they play a little game of hide and seek. And it's like one thing that I think of, it's a YouTube video by Jacob Geller, and it's about Final Fantasy. And he was talking about how there's this little detail in the Final Fantasy remake of these two girls dancing on a rooftop. And the whole game has been pretty gritty and dark up until then. And even amongst all of that, there's this little moment of light. And when you've got the plague storyline, there's still this little moment of light. And obviously, after all of us living through 2020, it was shit, but there was still like these little moments of light. You saw, all of these people singing songs together in their apartments, people dancing on rooftops. So I like those I guess the little moments of hope, especially when the game is set like, in a war.
Yeah. And people say that Quebec games are kind of light-hearted. Syndicate certainly has lots of light-hearted moments. Odyssey does have light-hearted moments, but there's plenty of gritty shit going on as well. It's not a comedy. I mean, yes, there's funny moments. Like we said, the whole Testicles thing, getting eaten by a shark or whatever. And I know that comedy doesn't work for some people. That's fine. We all have different tastes in comedy. But it's mostly she's trying to find her family, and she goes through hell and back to do it. And then she takes down this secret cult of weirdos, So it's mostly pretty serious. And yeah, a light-hearted moment could have been very powerful there.
And it's like with like Syndicate, as you just said. Syndicate, like in the story, it's like, pretty lighthearted, at the end, I guess like they win. But it's like they win, but the Templars still have control of the British Empire.
Yes.
Right? London wasn't an insulated incident. That's how every single country under the like British Empire is suffering. And it's like, oh yeah, you've got like this lighthearted moment, and even like, the lighthearted moment when like Jacob and Evie, they kind of like put aside their differences. Even like in their argument before, you can tell there's like that real darkness there. But even amongst all of that, there's still like, I can think of like stealing the combustion engines with Ned and the machine gun quest, where Jacob just goes like, yeah, we might have to wait on that, as there's like a machine gun in front of them that's burning. But it's like, I like when games aren't sad all the time because
Yeah.
it's how life is. It can't be all dark all the time.
And people are good at finding humor in all kinds of situations,
Mm.
And why would our assassins and Templars and even people who are not formally assassins, why would they not
Yeah.
be the same?
I think Melisande said that when she did that stream with Cecile when they were playing a bit of the crossover. And she kind of said, like, Cassandra's really coping with, like, humor, right? She's lived this long, it sucks, but she's still trying to find, like, the good in people. And she sees the good in Eivor, even if Eivor herself doesn't see, her own good heart because she feels still so consumed by, like, that revenge. And I think it's that whole thing. Like, Cassandra, she goes through so much in the story, but she's still kind to people. Like, the way she kind of, like, kneels down and talks with, like, kids. She won't hesitate to stop a bounty mission to go and play hide and seek with these random kids on an island that are like,
Yes.
hello, tall person, will you play some hide and seek? And she's like, absolutely, I will. Because it's like with Phoebe, like, she grew up without that, like, from, like, the book and the game. Her childhood seems to be murdering people for Marcos.
It's
right, she
yeah.
had to fight for every single meal, and she wants to make sure that other people don't have to do that. Like with Phoebe, she gives Phoebe her food, even though, like, she doesn't have any. And I think that's made, like, even more clear in the book. She says that, like, the bandits, they stole, like, all of her rations, all of her provisions, and she gives, like, her last piece of, like, meat and her last bit of, like, water to Phoebe because she's still kind despite being very vengeful, and I just love that in a character. I love brooding characters that have just a heart of gold. Joel from The Last of Us is one of them. It's a good character type.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, because if she was just a revengeful killer, that's fine, but it's probably not as enjoyable to play.
It's much, like, more interesting because it's like when you want a character, you want them to feel as real as possible, even though they're made up of a bunch of hexagons.
Yes.
So having, like, characters that, they feel anger, they feel pain, they feel, like, humor, all of these, like, the full spectrum of human emotions. That's what I feel makes Odyssey so much, like, so good. I saw, like, a lot of reviewers talking about it when it first came out, was that it gave the series, like, a really human feel. Like, yeah, it was a story about family and trying to get your family back together, but the way that the characters were written, it was like they were really jumping out of the screen. They felt like real characters.
That's very interesting. So these were preview reports or early reviews where they have the game. People sort of really appreciated the characterization.
Yeah, I think one of them was for PlayStation.
Okay.
And I can't remember the reviewer for the life of me, but they had basically said, like, it brings that more human touch that the game was starting to, like, miss. It felt like, you've got all these, like, massive historical events, but a lot of the times when seeing massive historical events, we seem to forget that actual people had to live through those events. In the past couple of years, we've been those people living through those historical events. So to see a game that takes history as big as the Peloponnesian War and puts you in the shoes of one character who's involved with the war, but also has kind of her own struggles and her own story that she needs to get through, I think that's what hit the mark for, like, a lot of people.
That's interesting. It's great to hear because it's always nice to read reviews that basically reinforce your own opinion. I suppose we should seek out opposite opinions as well. But I've never actually read, well, apart from the JV video that I mentioned earlier, I've never read a review of Odyssey despite the amount of time, because I suppose I just enjoyed it and I was like, what's a reviewer going to tell me that I don't already know? But maybe I should actually start reading some more reviews and seeing what people think. And do I see the same? Do I feel the same? Maybe not. But
Yeah.
that's
I'm
interesting.
that type of person. I read so many reviews before I buy something.
Okay.
Before I go to I started uni, and the suburb, it's like quite far away from me, and it's more inner city. So I was Googling all of these cafes, I was Googling the reviews, I was like, I need to make sure it's good before I go, because I don't want to waste money on something bad, especially when the closer you get into the city, the more expensive stuff becomes. So I'm not going to pay, $14 for a really bad lunch. And 14 doesn't seem expensive, but I paid $14 for a coffee and a croissant the other week, and I've never felt more scammed.
Yeah, that does sound very expensive. Even allowing for the exchange rate, that's a lot of money.
I think, yeah, so $14 Australian, that would be £7, I think, because it's usually double.
Yeah, that's a lot. I probably should.
Yeah.
It's funny. I mean, I don't own. I own enough games. I own enough games that I've not even played, which is embarrassing. I promised myself I wouldn't buy any new games this year, and I've mostly stuck to it. Anyway, moving on. Maybe I should make wiser choices, but anyway.
I bought I think it's called The Forgotten City. That was a game that was based on a Skyrim mod, and it was made into a full game.
Wow.
And I was super excited because it was made by an Australian company. And I was like, yeah, gonna support this Australian company. And it's like set in kind of like a Roman city, and you can name your character. So I named my character Cassandra, being like, oh, maybe this is one of the adventures that she went on.
Sounds good. What's this game called?
It's called The Forgotten City. I believe it's on Xbox, PC, and PlayStation.
But it's a mod for Skyrim.
So it was originally a mod on Skyrim, and then it was built into a full standalone game.
That's incredible.
Truly, like, the graphics, I think it was like, it's made by a 3-person team over like the span of 4 years. And I think it's Modern Storyteller is the studio that made it, and they're a Melbourne studio. That was one of the big things of me wanting to play the game, was it was made in my home city. But like, I literally read one good review, and the review was so good that I was convinced to buy this game.
And did it play out? Did it meet that standard?
It's such a good game. It's got like,
excellent.
multiple different endings. You like play through them, and like I'm not going to spoil it, right? But there's like things that you would make it seem like it just gets like a bit samey, but it just works so well the way that it's done. And yeah, I named my character Cassandra.
Glad to see it. I think we should probably wrap up the conversation because it is getting very late or very early, depending on your point of view here.
Yes, I've just seen the time. My goodness. I told you I'd talk about this game a lot.
I could. We haven't even talked about gameplay, and I would love to talk about gameplay, but we'll save that for another time. I will just say.
I was just going to say my 2 cents on gameplay.
Please do.
Okay. It's very smooth. I love how Cassandra's fighting style feels like a mix of basically all these fighting styles, because growing up where you have to fight to survive, you would not have a down-pat fighting style. And I also think it is incredibly badass that she doesn't use a shield. She just uses her own spear.
Yes. That topic or the decision that they took to not give Cassandra a shield, that annoys a lot of people. And for me, it never has, because you just parry. Just tap parry and she'll parry. You don't. I guess people want to role play as a Greek hoplite with the round shield. So I suppose from a role playing point of view, that's what they want. But from a gameplay point of view, I don't know. I didn't know any different because this was the first game that I played, and like I mentioned earlier, just coming off of Origins, of course, Bayek has a shield, and you have to have the shield up if you want to parry. Of course, it's just a different combat style. It doesn't mean that one is better or worse, but there's a lot more standing and waiting when you've got the shield up
Yeah.
as Bayek. Whereas with Cassandra, you're always moving, whether you're attacking or dodging or parrying or turning to face another Gar or turning to face back that way. It's always in motion, and it does feel good. It
And I was
really
going to
does.
say, she does get a shield, in a way, in the crossover story, in a little cave of treasures. She has Brasidas' shield and his helmet, and she says like a little line of like, I miss you so much. And when I heard that, I was like, usually Spartan shields were given to the person who was closest to that soldier, so like their family or whatever. But it seems as though like the Spartan soldiers that were part of like Brasidas' kind of like contingent, they saw Cassandra as like his closest friend, and that detail, that struck me in the gut.
Oh, damn. Do you know, I've only played the crossover once, and I mean, we're recording this on Wednesday, the 30th of June. Of course, this will all happen before the episode is actually published, but tomorrow, Thursday the 1st, I will be doing a live stream of Odyssey as part of the AC15 celebrations, and I'm going to replay the crossover. So I'm going to refresh my memory of all of these lines, like you said, because I'd forgotten about Brasidas' shield. I remember there's a shrine with, is it Nicolaus' shield at the northern end of the island, I think. But yeah, I'd forgotten that detail about Brasidas' shield. But yeah. I never felt the lack of a shield was a problem. I found the combat to be a lot of fun.
And it also makes sense if, like, she's traveling around. Okay, yeah, she might be carved from marble with her arms, but carrying a shield all the way across Greece would be a pain in the arse.
Absolutely.
Plus, it just looks cool. Like, the silhouette, even without, like, the shield, it's still kind of like, I don't know how to say it. She gives more of an Ares look than, like, Athena. Athena is always pictured like with her shield, and Ares is usually like the one that goes in just like guns blazing. And it's like, I like that they kind of like, they were like, yeah, so she's like, a bit of Athena, but Ares is kind of like, I guess would be like her patron god.
If I remember rightly, and I'm not an expert on Greek myth, I'll just at one point in the future, I would love to have Liv from the Myths Baby podcast on the show, because I know she's a big Odyssey fan, and I'd love to basically say to her, right, Greek myth in the game, go. So hello, listening. I'm sure you're not, but if you are, but it sounds like Athena was the goddess of strategic war, if I'm right, and Ares was more like the god who represented the anger or the rage, the brutality of war. So yeah, I like the fact that maybe she was rather more of a brutal combat, following in his style.
Yeah,
we should like probably let Declan speak, because he's had his hand up for ages. But you and I could keep nattering.
the combat battles. If I was on like that field and I just saw this woman with like a broken spear and some rusty ass sword, I'd be like, can I go home? This is my last day on Earth.
Yes. Declan, please
take it away.
I'm just having fun listening to you too. I was just going to say, I'm one of these weird people that actually hates Origins because of the shield. Like, Origins is like a 9 out of 10.
Hate's a very strong word, mate.
It's just,
tell us more.
Like, Origins is 9 out of 10 for me. It's a perfect game. It's just, again, down to how my brain works. The idea of having a shield on 24/7 and then to still have a smooth bow action to whip out your bow is just unpredictable, because there's a lot of weight in the shield. And I know it's stupid, but seeing Bayek able just to quickly whip out his hunting bow and his shield's gone, it's like, come on. It takes a while to put your shield.
Are you saying
back.
It's not historically accurate and it breaks your immersion? Is that what you're saying?
Shields break my immersion no matter what game it is. I won't have a shield in Skyrim. I won't have a shield in Dragon's Dogma. I hate shields in Valhalla. I was glad Odyssey had no shields.
I didn't use a shield in Valhalla.
I just don't like shields in video games. They're just not my playstyle. I don't like that have to wait to block. I'd rather just kick something in the face or punch something in the face. And if I've got a spare hand, I'd rather use it to punch than to block. If time being cast gets long, she's got the right thing going. If some idiot's blocking my sword and I've got a free hand, stab them with a spear. She's a genius. She's perfect. She knew what was happening. She knew that if you're going to block a sword, she can stab you with the other. Perfect.
I love to say it. It's like the whole thing with shields. How everyone was so excited to dual wield shields in Valhalla.
Yeah.
And then I think I've used a shield a total of maybe four times. One was when I was like, oh yes, if she's meeting with these dignitaries, she would want to have the symbol of her clan with her. And then the other time was, oh, the shield looks cool. Actually, I think there was a third time where I basically dressed Eivor up as a Roman legionnaire and walked across Hadrian's wall. But that was unrelated to any story. That was just me being a nerd.
Yeah, I like that little role-playing detail, though, that, you put the shield on because it shows off the... I'm not sure I've ever role-played any of the Assassin's Creed games that deeply. I did with this Horizon. With Horizon Forbidden West, I've got a number of rules that my Aloy sticks to when she's exploring the world and meeting people. But that's probably a topic for another podcast. We should probably do a Horizon podcast, Declan, because we've got enough friends of the show that have played it that we could probably take a week out and just chat about all things Horizon. But anyway, sorry, that is way off topic.
I was just thinking about...
Oh, sorry, you go.
Sorry, you go first, Ru.
I was just gonna say, with like the kind of like role-playing stuff, if I, like in Odyssey, when going to Athens, I wouldn't have Cassandra wearing Spartan armor.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't think... Yes, she's a bit of an arrogant person. She's a little bit cocky. But I don't think she would be wearing, like, the full gold and red Spartan armor with the helmet and just walking through the market. Because she's going to get a guard that's going to look at her and be like, what are you doing? She's probably like, I don't have time for this.
That's a very good point. I always role-played her not in the very bright armor, like you say, the gold and the white. Whenever I would either have her as a sort of a warrior monk style, so the barest minimum of like her very simple, cloth, linen, and then just like the leather strapped over the shoulders, or
the
if she was
outfit,
the pilgrim's outfit, because it's just the best outfit,
best outfit.
Yeah, she would just have a real mixture of stuff, because in my mind, she's a mercenary. She picks up whatever crap she gets off the battlefield, so she shouldn't be kind of fashionable and coordinated. So sometimes I would go through periods where I would just put all this random old beaten up rusty stuff on, because to my mind, that's how she would be. But,
I was going to say, you know what? To anyone listening, I would like to see your most weird, just odd, maybe stylish Odyssey outfits. Tag them on Twitter with like Fashions Odyssey and tag me. I want to see everyone's like just kooky outfits. I think one time I had like, it was like that purple armor that's got like the leopard print across it, and then like a big chunky Mycenaean belt.
I'm going to do that, Ru. I'm going to go into Odyssey, maybe tomorrow as part of the stream, which of course by the time you're listening to this will have been 3 days ago. But anyway, that's getting confusing. I'm going to mess around with some transmog and see what we can come up with. I love it.
Yup.
On the roleplay side, I roleplay Cassandra the same way I roleplay any of the last 3 games. I have a legacy Assassin's build in my mind where I try and build my characters based off traits from some of the older Assassins. So archery, I try and focus more on like, I want to be a skilled archer like Connor was. So focus in archery. Stealth, to mimic Altair and Ezio's stealth. And combat, I try and be as brutal as Jacob and Evie. And that's just how I seem to build the characters.
Nice.
So my Cassandra was swift, kicked ass, and just snuck everywhere because who says you... I think I managed to clear a camp undetected in 2 minutes. And there's 40 guards in there. Who says you can't be an assassin in Odyssey?
this long grass. You're good.
Exactly.
It's like with like Evie and Jacob. I feel like I played Evie so much more aggressive than Jacob. Especially when it came to like the fight clubs. I would always do the fight clubs with Evie. I was like, she needs to get some anger out.
I did the same. It was always Evie in the fight clubs, but not for the same reasons.
I mean, those reasons as well.
To be honest, I just put her in the fight clubs because I have four siblings, and I have a younger sibling who is an absolute annoying goofball, and I could relate to her, and I could see how stressful Jacob would be, and I could understand if you want to go to Fight Club and knock 10 bells or something because Jacob's been an idiot, I could support you because I would do the exact same. Amount of people I've killed in Assassin's Creed 2 because my brothers wound me up that day is immensible. Ezio would go to killing spree because my brothers done my nut in that day.
Yeah.
So I can relate to Evie.
Yeah, I feel like the twins, they've probably like got a board up in their train, and it's like a tally of their fight club wins, and it's yet another thing of them just like having just like playful competitions as, you know, twins.
I can imagine that. Have either of you watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
Yes.
Do you remember, is it the opening episode or the opening few episodes where, if you haven't watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine, by the way, and you're listening, none of this will make any sense. I'm really sorry. It's not a spoiler. Jake and Amy are having a competition on who can solve the most cases, and they're marking it up on the whiteboard. Straight away, I'm thinking of that scene, but it's Evie and Jake. Anyway, so I love that. But I haven't fit. I'm on to series. They've just got married. That's a big spoiler. Probably shouldn't have said that. Oh, well, it's an old series. I'm watching it like 5 years too late, so it's too late. I think I'm up to series 6. We haven't got series 8 in the UK yet, so I won't be able to watch all of it, but I'm obsessed with Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It's brilliant. Anyway, that's off topic.
Yeah, they definitely have competitions. All of the siblings in Assassin's Creed, whether they have a good relationship or a bad relationship, they would have like a friendly competition, and it would be like something really stupid, like if it was like in the modern day, who can collect the post the most amount of times out of the week. Actual competition my sister and I used to have.
Interesting. So you had a competition to help your parents. I love it.
Yes, we did. We would like, whoever could get collect the post the most amount of times that week would win. We were odd children, and it's still odd.
No, I wouldn't say that. Not with your many talents.
We do make the joke that we're just a mush of both Evie and Jacob, because I was trying to explain their characters to her, and I said one is street smarts and one is book smarts. And she's like, they're both of us. They're just combined. They've each got 2 brain cells and we've got one of them.
Okay, Declan, I think about 20 minutes ago I said we should probably close the show, and I think we should.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm probably going to sleep. I'm up at 7 tomorrow. Yeah, 7 for the school runs. Oh, which school? I think I'm taking my youngest tomorrow, so that's not bad. He's not at school till 9:15, but 7 breakfast. And I have a can of Monster, so that'll wake me up.
Oof, breakfast of champions.
Just a monster.
Yeah, I mean, just finish it off with a cigarette, you know? Why not?
Why not?
Not to be rude, right?
I don't condone smoking, by the way. I don't smoke myself, and I wouldn't suggest anyone takes it up.
I haven't smoked for like 5 years now.
Oh,
yay!
Good man.
No, wait.
Good job.
Yeah, going on 6 years this year. I'm awesome, but I don't drink Monster for breakfast. But when somebody says, "Hi, do you want 4 £1.50 cans for £1, saving yourself £4, I'm buying them because they're £1. I'm a Brit that will buy anything for cheap, And if it's free and I don't need it, I'll still take it. I once took I think it was a red onion and cheese bagel. That was a free sample, and I hate red onions because it was free. I didn't want to eat it. I didn't want to even look at it. I just wanted it because it's free. Yeah, I will accept anything that's free. And that's probably what we should have said that.
Send free stuff to Declan. There you are.
dig. Yeah, I'm weird. I go to town and I take free samples because it's free. I don't want it, it's just free. Anyways, dig.
We were just stalling, so we crossed the 2-hour mark. And we have now.
Mission accomplished.
Goal achieved.
I just don't know why I just suddenly just realised I like free stuff, and I'm now just thinking to myself, I'm like Cassandra. Those pieces of Edens were free, and she didn't want them, but she took them because they were free. And if someone gave me immortality to collect glowing Isu balls for free, I kind of take it.
Yeah.
It's free.
See, they've got the prime qualities. Free and they're shiny.
You see? I can relate. Shiny, free, and if there's food, I'm there in an instant. I will rob anything for free, shiny, and food.
She lives in the Mediterranean. She's got a plethora of olives, I bet.
I've never had an olive, but I could try. I could get used to this. It's a blasphemy. Anyways.
Blasphemy that you haven't had olives. Olives are so good.
I like a lot of things. Licorice is better, probably. But anyways. I've
Just getting
lost
distracted again.
I know. This is why I shouldn't run a podcast. I get distracted too easily. Anyways, I've totally forgot this podcast's episode name. So yeah, Odyssey. Are you very...
It is the Odyssey podcast.
So Odyssey, a very divisive game in the community, but a crap ton of fun, and one that I would highly recommend anyone to play. Not just because Cassandra is a stellar actress, and stellar story. Probably muddle my words up, but leave me alone. But it is one of the most beautiful worlds ever created, and probably one of the most vibrant. So we would actually love to hear your thoughts on Odyssey. You can email us them at assassinscreedletstalk@gmail.com or on Twitter at acletstalk and at jamestiliquid. And it is currently on sale as well at CD Keys for 50% off, which if you do pick it up, any purchase made through our link in the description will help boost the show a little bit, and you can all just spam us with photos, because I now have Odyssey again, and those 49 photos I lost to my PlayStation, I can just remake. But triple it to probably 1,000. Saved. So people prepare for a Twitter storm of photos of the sun, butts, yes, giant statue butts, and
I shouldn't be hanging off this.
It's a rite of passage. Everyone climbs on Zeus's penis.
That's how most myths are created, from Zeus's junk.
It is actually, yes, yes.
And if nobody believes me, go read Greek myth and you'll realise that Zeus populated half the world because he just was a horn dog. Anyways.
He was not a pleasant chap. Something about swans. Anyway.
Oh, gosh.
We should
I don't mean he had sex with swans. I mean he turned into a swan to impregnate. Oh, he turned into a cow as well at some point, I think.
Wasn't there like a bull? Probably a pigeon.
Probably. Jeez, that
Icarus
guy.
is actually Zeus. Conspiracy theory that.
And then he got angry, I think, at a bee back in the days because she wanted to keep ambrosia, which is honey, for herself. So he made her have a stinger that she stung before she died, but I may have remembered the myth wrong. But yeah, he basically wanted to keep honey for himself. The greedy man.
What a weird guy.
Yeah, I've read Greek myth and I'm like, what the hell was that guy on?
Some aspects of it are very troubling.
Yeah. I love when people try to make Greek myth all aesthetic, and it's like, no, they were seriously on something. Guys, there's too many like animals that talk.
You're not wrong.
You know, it's wrong when the birth story is because their dad tried to eat them.
Kronos. Yeah.
You know, happens to everyone.
And Athena was born from Zeus's head, apparently. It's anyway. That's proper nightmare fuel, isn't it? Right. That's enough ancient. Look, we're still recording. So what the hell? I will say I haven't spoke or tried to get in contact, but I would really like to speak to Liv from the Myths Baby podcast about all of these topics and how Odyssey brought Greek, because we did kind of a myth and history episode with Amit and Baladria about origins. We had a good conversation with Ludo History about Dawn of Ragnarok and all the myth in Valhalla, and I think we need to finish our own little mythology trilogy with an Odyssey myth or ancient Greek myth episode at some point soon. So see if we can set it up.
Yes. I'm just going to leave everyone with the thought of if Cassandra is in fact a demigod, like, is that like a normal thing, or did she like just pop out of like Marini's hand?
And on that bombshell, yeah.
On
Thank
that
you, Ru.
bombshell, goodbye.
And on that bombshell, I'm not sleeping. Thank you everybody for tuning in. I pressed the wrong button again.
Are you going to stop recording now?
Yes, thanks everybody. We'll see you all next week.
See you soon.
See ya.